Welcome to it. It's Depeche Mode, the podcast, and I'm your host, Jon Justice. I'm glad you're with this week's episode. As always, if you're enjoying the show up on YouTube, leave a comment, follow the page, and if you're listening to this on the podcast, be sure to subscribe on whatever podcast platform you're enjoying the show on. So, no news this week. I know. No news this week as we await the upcoming debut of the Depeche Mode film documentary M here in June, a little over a month away at the Tribeca Film Festival in New York City. We await further news on that documentary, and while I was provided a link from a friend of the show, I did go and check it out on this website and thought maybe there was some new information to share regarding the documentary, but it looks as if it was just sort of an expanded detailing of what we already know about the documentary without anything new in terms of information to shed light on what the experience will be like when you and I both have the opportunity to see this film. You know, again, I think it's pretty clear. The one thing we can take away, and they've been specific about this with regard to the details of the film, is that this will be documenting those shows that took place during the Memento Mori tour in Mexico. But at the film runtime being around 95 minutes, clearly it's not going to be the entire show. My expectation is we'll still be getting a physical release at some point. Hopefully that will also involve the entirety of the concert and even a potential live album to be attached to it as well. So I think when we get closer to the film's release date, and I don't know if it'll be officially released as I suspected around that June Tribeca Film Festival, or if that will be its premiere and debut, and it will be released a little bit later on. I've seen some reporting online from various Depeche Mode social networking outlets saying the film will be out in autumn. I guess it depends on where autumn lands in your mind. I consider June to still be summer for me. So we'll see, and as soon as we have information regarding any new details about the documentary, I'll share them here on the show. And I'll just mention again, my expectation is that we will be getting those 4 unreleased Memento Mori tracks to coincide with the promotion of this documentary. So still very exciting times at a time when the band has been relatively quiet. And of course, with Dave and Martin doing that interview in New York City, you never know what could end up coming out of these two, remaining members and the core members of Depeche Mode having the opportunity to get together, especially with the fandom coming out en masse to see the documentary and watch this interview at the Tribeca Film Festival. With that, we're going to spend the rest of the show this week just talking about emails and dream set lists as they continue to roll in. People posting them up on YouTube on my page, and of course emailing me, TalkShowNerd@gmail.com. First, let's go here and hear from Daniel. Good evening. I have a question regarding the upcoming Depeche Mode film. Recently, I was listening to your podcast, and as we both know, it will be a feature film with clips from the actual concert included. I wanted to ask you if you have any information about recording direct concert without the plot insets, or at least if professional audio recording was prepared. I would be grateful for your answers. So I don't know anything specific regarding whether or not the film about the recording process of the film at all. I do know that there has been discussion about a potential live album before the announcement of the documentary. So combining and crossing the streams on those two, rumors, one not being a rumor anymore with the documentary, the other one just being a bit of a rumor, I would say that there's probably a 65% chance that we'll get a live album from this. This may be a trial balloon, too, regarding the announcement of the documentary and then seeing what the fan response is. Record labels, movie studios, they all track social media. They all track commentary online now. It's just part of what they do. You may have or may not have seen. There's been a lot of articles written about actors and actresses that get hired not only because of their their skill set, but also how many followers they have. This is all a part of this new media world and social networking world that we live in. So perhaps there is talk about releasing a live album or the entire concert in a physical release, but it would cost money to go and do so. And maybe they're waiting to see what the fan response is to the documentary in the time between its premiere here coming up in June and when it was announced a week or so ago, to gauge whether or not there'll be enough interest to recoup the dollars necessary to go and produce physical releases attached to the documentary. Pure speculation on my part. Getting back to more of what Daniel said, I'm going to just sit back and enjoy the Dream set list. Great listener feedback idea, and I'm looking forward to yours. Super stoked for M. Lastly, I agree. The singles tour, Dave saying, so good on that tour. It absolutely harkens back to the pre-Violator tours. I loved that tour. I also love the idea of peppering the set list and the podcasts. People are people. Here's a question. I've always heard Martin and Dave hate that track and will never play it again live. I've never found a quote of that from them. Do you have any insight on this? And actually, my apologies. That is a question and comments from Tool 46 and 2. I don't know exactly where I had heard that before, but I believe that Martin, from what I remember, Martin was never the biggest fan of People Are People. My understanding, and I would probably defer to Uber fan from the global Depeche fan group, Rob Rom, to provide a more solid answer to this, or you listening. There's plenty of individuals out there that know their Depeche Mode, and those better than I know my Depeche Mode. But my understanding was that Martin was never the biggest fan of that song, and it seems as if there's a handful of songs that Martin, even though they were successful, just doesn't align himself with because he feels like, or doesn't talk highly of and speak highly of because he feels like they're too simple. And it's understandable, but I think People Are People fell into that category. It's Called a Heart certainly fell into that category. I think Strangelove, oddly, falls a bit into that category, even though I know they've brought it back on a handful of the recent tours, at least for a little while, because it was such a huge hit. I just think that People Are People falls in, again, to that category of songs that Martin's not all that proud of. All right, Siwa9878 writes this. Thank you for answering my comment about a potential full live film. Thank you for stating that the live audio recording, live album, is considered to be released. That gives me hope. I would not be surprised if a full live film is not going to be released, because as you stated, the shows could very well just have been filmed for the documentary. I am absolutely sure that the live album audio will be physically released alongside the documentary M in the Blu-ray and DVD release. Thank you for that. I tend to believe the same there, Siwa. All right, next, let's go to George out of Hamburg, Germany. And he is the one who provided me with a link to a website called Vinyl Me Please. Depeche Mode to premiere concert film celebrating Memento Mori in the Mexico City performances. I went through the article, and like I said, it was a lengthy piece, but it really just seemed to be extrapolating off of what we already knew about this documentary. He does go on to say, though, I am looking forward to more Dream concert track lists. I'm always what you and others think about my opinion. I'm always curious what you and others think about my opinion, but also statements from other DM fans. Do you ever think about starting another DM Facebook community, this time for listeners of your pod? Another way to exchange thoughts and Dream set lists. Don't want to stop you from what you already have to do. Thanks for your pod week by week. Always looking forward to the next episode, George. I hadn't thought about that, and I wish I had the time to do it, but the reality is I simply don't. That would have to be something that a listener of the show would have to go and create on their own, which I would be absolutely fine if they did. I simply don't have the time to go and monitor and set up a Depeche Mode, the podcast, a Facebook community page. But if somebody wanted to, feel free to go for it. You absolutely have my endorsement. Okay, I mentioned this email last week, and I'm really happy to go and share it with you. This comes from Franz out of Germany, and he writes this. I'm an 18-year-old boy from Dresden in Germany. I really like your podcast, and I wanted to share some of my feelings about the upcoming Memento Mori documentary and to give you my 20-song set list. Because of my father being a Depeche Mode fan, I grew up listening to the band from time to time. We often listened to the singles 86 to 98 and the CD in the car. I remember that I really liked the live version of Everything Counts from the Rose Bowl that is on the CD, despite the fact that I did not understand anything from the lyrics because I was a little boy at the time and I didn't understand English. Approximately at the time of release of Ghosts Again, I got my own Spotify account. I wasn't really into music at the time, and I did not know what to listen to, so I thought about listening to Depeche Mode, and luckily I did. I started listening to the complete singles 86 through 98 compilation, and I instantly loved it. I decided to dive into their catalog and began listening to their other albums, which was very easy because of Spotify. I really loved their albums, especially everything from Black Celebration up to Ultra, and started to collect all of their albums on CD and some of them on vinyl. I watched all the album documentaries, every concert film, and watched or listened to everything from the band that caught my attention. After a while, I started to call myself a fan. As I've already mentioned, that was just before the release of Ghosts Again. I remember liking Ghosts Again, but not really appreciating it as new material from the band because I did not experience the long break between Spirit and their new music. The same applies for Memento Mori. I liked it, but I did not appreciate it as something special as I never experienced a long break without music from the band. I went on to see Depeche at 2 shows on the latest tour, and especially my first concert in Leipzig in 2023, and it was a very special experience for me. I remember the beginning of Walking in My Shoes, my favorite song, he writes, as the moment where I thought, this can't be real. What is happening right now? I've got no pictures or videos from the show, but despite that, I will always remember it. Kudos to you. I'll get back to that in a moment, for not having any pictures or videos. That's how it was for so many of us. Especially those of us, of a certain age, me being 52, 53 this year. We didn't take, some people did, but you weren't allowed to bring in you didn't have smartphones, didn't have cell phones, and you weren't supposed to be bringing in cameras. And so I don't know any Depeche Mode show that I actually took pictures at, and I'm completely fine with that and glad that I did. I said I was going to wait before I said anything, huh? Anyways, I couldn't. I had to go and chime in. Today I read about the new documentary coming out, and I'm really, really excited because of the fact that I'm now experienced a time without new material from Depeche Mode for the first time. This makes me appreciate the new material a lot more. It's also for the first time that I comprehend how you lifelong fans must have felt in the long time between the new material in the past and how exciting it is that something new will be released. So before I get into his 20-song set list, which is really interesting, by the way, I just found this to be an absolutely fascinating email, and I so appreciate, Franz, you sharing this with us, being an 18-year-old, because it's interesting to see how even for another generation and a much younger generation, you ended up falling in love with the band and became a fan the way so many of us did when we found the band. And you went through and experienced exactly what I went through. Now, this is going back to the 80s, hearing a few Depeche Mode songs, but then finally hearing Shake the Disease in 86, and then realizing that this song was touching me in a way that I had never felt before regarding a band, and then going and doing exactly what you did, consuming everything I possibly could, listening to every single album, import, B-side, instrumental that I could get my hands on in anticipation of the next album that would be coming out, which would end up being Music for the Masses, and it being the first album that I purchased on the day it was released. So it's really special for me to hear somebody at 18 years old today in 2025 that, again, went through exactly what so many of us went through when we discovered how special Depeche Mode was. Franz then writes, it was really difficult for me to create a 20-song set list, and I decided to only include songs I haven't heard at the 2 concerts I visited, but I wish I would have heard them. So here's his set list. Rush, People Are Good, Never Let Me Go, Halo, Get Right With Me, Shine, Insight, Fly on the Windscreen, Things You Said, Blue Dress, Lie to Me, Mercy in You, Here Is the House, Nothing, Always You, Judas. And then for the encore, Little 15, Blasphemous Rumors, Clean, The Sun and the Rainfall. I've already gone through many set lists last week's episode, working on this week's episode. That's a pretty awesome set list right there. I would 100% be on board with that. Thank you very much for your podcast. Franz writes up, keep up the great content. Greetings from Germany, Franz. Franz, thank you. I'm so glad that you found the show and you shared your story and your set list with us. That was a pretty awesome set list. And not to diminish any of the other set lists that I'll be sharing on the show today or other episodes, but it is to say that coming from an 18-year-old to put together a set list like that, pretty awesome. All right, let's go and hear from a friend of the show, John, who writes this. If I've sent this before, you can ignore this one. This is Jon Justice, John. I meant to, but I'm never sure if I did. I feel all Depeche Mode concerts must have the following. Enjoyed the silence, personal Jesus, never let me down, everything counts. Okay, I can't argue with that. You can place those at the end, but I'd love to hear the following in any order live. People Are People, Black Celebration, Stripped, Photographic, Waiting for the Night, Behind the Wheel, Leave in Silence, nice. Something to Do, nice. One Caress, Martin singing, Useless, When the Body Speaks. I love the inclusion of Exciter tracks. That's pretty awesome. Insight, sung by Martin. Suffer Well, Going Backwards, cool. Before We Drown, of course. And Home. Maybe throw in a couple of instrumentals at the beginning and an encore of Pimp and further excerpts from My Secret Garden. Thank you, John. It's always great to hear from you, and I hope you are doing very well, my friend. All right, let's go to Hugo Rivolo, 7155, who writes this for their dream set list. Higher Love, Here Is the House, so much love for Here Is the House. Love it. Devotional version of World in My Eyes, Rush. Wow, that's 2 Rush. Fly on the Windscreen, Lie to Me. Boy, Lie to Me and then Sun and the Rainfall. These are getting a lot of love. I don't know if I had the time, but I would really love to go through all the set lists and just find the recurrence of particular tracks and then create the ultimate set list. If I had all the time in the world and didn't have a full-time job. Listen, I'll save all this for when I retire. How's that? Because I'm sure I'll still be doing the podcast then. I'm sorry. Where are we at? Sun on the Rainfall. Any second now, or it doesn't matter, Martin. I Want You Now, devotional version, Martin. Stripped, devotional version. Shake the Disease, yes. Ghosts Again, yes. Mercy in You, It's No Good. A Pain That I'm Used to, the 2005 live version. Enjoy the Silence, devotional version. For the encore, Only When I Lose Myself, 2013 live version with Martin on lead vocal. Leave in Silence, Everything Counts, World Violation live version. Behind the Wheel, Route 66 World Violation live version. By the way, thank you for giving all of us DM fans great podcasts every week. Please don't stop. Thank you, Hugo. I appreciate that. I'll tell you, I walk away from the podcast like almost every week going, I could have done a better job. It's difficult. I would devote a lot more time to the podcast if I had a lot more time to devote to the podcast. And the truth of the matter is I just don't with my full-time job, unfortunately. So let's go. Where do I want to go? I'm sorry. I'm just looking through my emails here. And all right, let's do 2 more because I believe these ones have been hanging for a while. And then I'll save the rest for next week's episode. So I'm just rolling through the emails here really quick to see where I want to go because I've got a lot of different ones here. All right, let's go ahead and we heard from George earlier in the podcast, I believe, but unfortunately I had not talked about his dream set list. So let me go ahead and get into this. This is a challenge I really like. So here is the playlist of my dreams, considering there are only 20 tracks possible. I hope the intro is additional. Sure. Because it's not really played live in brackets. I put in optional alternative tracks to swap to in case they play a second gig in a city. So let's begin. Christmas Island is the intro. Black Celebration, as performed on the Devotional Tour, Fly on the Windscreen. World Violation version, stripped. Then If You Want, Shake the Disease, optional Blasphemous Rumors. I like that. Strange Love, Tour for the Masses version, useless. Devotional Tour, Personal Jesus, and Devotional Tour, I Feel You. Dave takes a break, Martin takes over, and gives us Surrender with the option of Only When I Lose Myself, both as performed on Martin's solo tour. Then I Want You Now as performed on the Exotic Tour, optional Blue Dress. Nice. Dave comes back. We get Devotional Tour version of World in My Eyes. It's No Good extended. World Violation Tour version of Enjoy the Silence. Halo. Shine. Boy, another inclusion of Shine again. Nice. Optional Dead of Night. Encore number 1, Clean. Walking in My Shoes, Devotional Tour version. And then Encore 2, Waiting for the Night and Good Night Lovers. 2 explanations. There is no Never Let Me Down Again in my set list, as I don't enjoy doing the arm waving so much. If every fan would hold a flag with his national colors while waving the arms, it would be different. If they would do so, the DM fans would show the peace within the international DM community. That would be great. I already had the idea for the final shows on the Spirit Tour in Berlin. At this point, many thanks to my mate Marcus, who made a flyer about this idea and spread it around the world via Facebook. Quite a few people and me really had the colors in their hands while waving their arms during Never Let Me Down Again. Also, please leave Christian Eigner at home for this time. Matt, friend of the show, is that you? I think you've mentioned getting rid of the drummer too, haven't you? Go back to the tape machine. Sorry, Christian, please don't take it personally. You may be the nicest guy ever, but at least for me, your drums don't go so well with the sound of DM that I prefer. And I know that many people love your drumming, but again, it doesn't work for me. As Dave said in a press conference before Memento Mori, DM is an electronic band. By the way, I think that was a little rude. He was asked about unplugged or acoustic concerts when he gave that answer. They made acoustic things like the version of Personal Jesus or the BBC session sometime later, so the question was not stupid. Well, again, it's just my opinion. So that's it for me. Greetings to all the Depeche Mode fans on the planet and in your books, John. I hope a few of you would also like to attend and celebrate the show of my choice with me from Hamburg, Germany, George. You know what's funny? I would tend to agree with you when it comes to the drumming of Christian Eigner, except for the fact that I'm of the assumption that he's really there because Dave needs another muse on stage, and they want to bring as much of a exciting dynamic out on tour, and having a live drummer just really fits that bill for them. So I tend to believe that that's the reason why they have Christian there still to this day. All right, let's get to one more. Brian Cruz writes this. I've been listening to your podcast for the last few years. A great outside-the-box listen when I'm out cutting on the golf greens at work. I'm from Dublin, Ireland. He says he's from Talot, so pronounced the same as Tallahassee minus the Hassy part. So I guess just Talot. I've seen DM all over Europe 16 times in total, and the first time was in '86 in Dublin as a teenager. Attached is my alternate set list from the Depeche Mode show in Dublin on February 3rd of 2024. Absolutely cracking performance. I was so excited at how good the set list was. When I got home, I was compelled to write this alternate list, which is now topical 1 year later on your show. One more thing. Are you aware of the Sounds of Depeche channel on YouTube? These guys have a lot of brilliant remix karaoke videos, great to sing along to, as I do regularly after a few beers. Me singing Jezebel at home on a cheapo karaoke machine using the sounds of Depeche video, and he included a link. Keep up the great work, writes Brian Cruz. All right, so let's get into the set list. Again, working off of the existing set list, this is what he wrote. Higher Love, Don't Say You Love Me, yes. Halo, Holtefeed, ooh. Boy, Brian, Holtefeed, really? You are a fan. Again, to each their own, just way down on the bottom of my list of Depeche Mode tracks. You know what? But I bet the band and Dave would be really happy to hear that you included that as number 4 on your set list. Clean, Alone, nice. My Secret Garden, Free Love, The Sinner in Me, interesting. Jezebel, Dressed in Black. Poison Heart, The Sweetest Condition. Barrel of a Gun. Interesting, another Exciter inclusion. I Feel Loved, another Exciter inclusion. Fly on the Windscreen. Leave in Silence, Useless, Always You, Sweetest Perfection. Now, again, he swapped out all the tracks that they played on the tour and recreated it, so that's why some of the staples obviously aren't going to be there. For the encore, Blue Dress, Should Be Higher, Wrong, and People Are People. Thank you again to everybody who wrote in, TalkShowNerd@gmail.com. Leave a comment up on YouTube as well. We have more dream set lists that I will share on next week's episode. At some point in the future episodes, too, we're going to dive into the B-sides. Got an email from friend of the show, Howard Kemple Jr., talking top B-sides. So we'll do that on some upcoming shows in the near future. As always, if you enjoyed the podcast and you also like science fiction, I hope you take a moment and check out my science fiction space opera series, EMBARK. It is a fun, fast-paced, and action-packed 7-book series, a science fiction adventure without an agenda. As Earth faces its end, follow pilots Taft, Katha, and their crew on a journey of survival across the galaxy as they fight for humanity's future, far from where it started. There's a lot of Depeche Mode references in my stories. And again, if you like your science fiction to be epic, filled with romance and a lot of action and unique action sequences, EMBARK is perfect for you. I wrote the 7-book series for adults, but it is completely age-appropriate for those 11 years old and older. So I hope you'll go and pick up EMBARK Book 1 today, available in hardcover, paperback, audiobook, ebook, and Kindle Unlimited on Amazon.com. Just search for EMBARK and Jon, Jon Justice. I look forward to hearing from you. TalkShowNerd@gmail.com or leave a comment up on YouTube. And I hope wherever you are, you're happy, you're healthy, you're safe. God bless. Have a great week, my fellow devotees. And I'll talk to you again next week. Bye.
Hello, this is Martin Gore from Depeche Mode. Hi, this is Dave Gahan from Depeche Mode, and you are listening to
Depeche Mode, the podcast.